You think domination comes from strength, from charisma, from connection. But you are wrong. True domination begins the moment you detach from the crowd. When you isolate, you no longer play by their rules, you write them. And when you manipulate, you don't deceive. You design the reality in which others must survive. In the theater of power, connection is both a weapon and a chain. Most are trapped by their need to be seen, loved, or understood. But the one who isolates himself learns to see without being seen. He becomes the observer of weakness, the architect of perception. Isolation is not loneliness, it is the silence from which control is born. Manipulation is not deceit, it is the art of bending chaos into order. Together, they form the dual pillars of domination. One removes distractions, the other sculpts obedience. To dominate is not to conquer bodies. It is to occupy minds. And in this lesson, you will learn why those who detach from humanity ultimately own it. You have been told that isolation is dangerous. That to be alone is to be weak, to be forgotten, to fade into irrelevance. But history does not favor the ones who always stood in the crowd. It remembers those who stepped away from it, observed it, and learned how to bend it. Isolation, my friend, is not retreat. It is reconnaissance. When you withdraw from the noise of others, you begin to hear the faint machinery of human nature, the gears of fear, desire, and ambition. Turning beneath their words, you stop reacting and start calculating. You stop seeking approval and begin orchestrating it. Look at the great tacticians of power. Julius Caesar was adored by his soldiers, yet feared by his peers. Before his conquest, he isolated himself, not on the battlefield, but politically. He stepped back from the Senate's games, studying them in silence, until he understood every loyalty, every weakness, every hunger for recognition. By the time he returned, he no longer played in their theater. He owned the stage. Isolation gives birth to perception, and perception is the first weapon of control. But most people cannot bear it. They crave noise. They crave validation. They fear the stillness where their masks begin to crack. That's why they never rule. They are too addicted to being seen. Ask yourself, when was the last time you chose silence instead of reaction? When did you last vanish? Not in defeat, but in design. To withdraw is to regain sight. Every empire, every organization, every relationship follows the same rule. The one who stands a step away controls the rhythm of those trapped within it. In the Renaissance courts, isolation was a tactic. A prince would withdraw from council meetings, letting his ministers debate and exhaust themselves. Then, when confusion peaked, he would reappear, calm, measured, the only one not stained by emotion. His very distance created authority. He was no longer a participant. He was the judge. The same principle governs modern life. In leadership, the isolated mind sees what others miss. In relationships, the one who detaches emotionally holds the balance of power. And in social hierarchies, the one least desperate for connection is the one most sought after. You see, dependence blinds. Every attachment becomes a leash, one that others can pull when you are not watching. But strategic isolation severs those strings. It is not loneliness, it is freedom disguised as solitude. When you isolate, you stop dancing to the rhythm of the collective mind. You start conducting it. Psychologically, isolation activates the observer within you. Neuroscientists call it metacognition, the ability to step outside your emotions and study them. Most people drown in their feelings, they react before they think. But the one who isolates gains the power to see himself, to edit his responses before they escape his mouth, to anticipate not only his own weakness, but the weaknesses of others. And when you master that, manipulation becomes effortless. Because people who cannot sit alone with their thoughts will follow anyone who offers them certainty. They will mistake your calm distance for wisdom, your silence for depth. You become their mirror, reflecting the image they wish to see. The great deceivers understood this. They rarely shouted. They listened. They let others reveal themselves, piece by piece, in their hunger to be understood, and when the time came, they used those pieces to build a throne. But beware. There is a difference between strategic isolation and emotional exile. You isolate to see, not to hide. The hermit loses touch with the world. The strategist studies it from afar. Your withdrawal must serve a purpose: to sharpen your mind, to cleanse it of the poison of conformity, to free it from the contagion of mediocrity. The world rewards those who are constantly visible, but it obeys those who know when to vanish. So learn the art of stepping back. Disappear from the noise of trends, the chorus of opinions, the desperate theater of relevance. Let them wonder where you've gone. Let them speak your name in your absence. Because in that silence your influence grows. Mystery breeds authority. Distance amplifies perception, and isolation, when wielded deliberately, becomes a crown unseen but deeply felt. The masses will never understand this. They equate presence with power, visibility with validation. But you will know the truth: to isolate is to refine is to perceive, and to perceive is to rule. Yet, perception alone is not enough. Once you have learned to see, you must learn to shape. And that is where manipulation begins. You believe control means domination. That power is taken by force, seized with boldness, and defended with strength. But true control does not roar, it reflects. The most dangerous ruler does not impose his will. He makes others think they are obeying their own. This is the mirror of manipulation, the art of bending reality through perception, not pressure. Consider this: people are not ruled by logic. They are ruled by their reflection. They crave recognition more than truth. They will follow the one who reflects their desires back at them, even if it leads them into chains. Have you ever noticed how quickly people open themselves to those who seem to understand them? They mistake recognition for safety, and once they feel seen, they stop seeing. That is where control begins. The mirror manipulator does not argue, does not fight for dominance. He listens, observes, absorbs, until he can project back the image the other person needs to believe in. The seducer uses this when he becomes what the other desires. The politician uses this when he promises what the crowd already wants to hear. The leader uses this when he embodies the ideal his followers crave to serve. And all of them succeed, not by force, but by reflection. Throughout history, the most cunning figures mastered this silent manipulation. Take Caesar Borgia, the model of cold power. He rarely threatened. He inspired awe by mirroring the ambitions of others. When he spoke to soldiers, he was one of them, hungry for conquest. When he addressed nobles, he became refinement itself, calm, controlled, superior. He adapted to every mirror before him until all saw what they wanted. And in seeing themselves, they obeyed him. Humans, you see, are addicted to self-projection. They seek versions of themselves in everyone they meet. The manipulator understands this weakness and offers that reflection strategically. In psychology, this is called mirroring. It's a primitive social mechanism, a way we bond and build trust. But when you use it consciously, it becomes a weapon. It lowers defenses, disarms ego, and creates the illusion of unity. And the illusion of unity is the perfect camouflage for control. Ask yourself, when you want someone to follow you, do you speak your truth or their language? Do you reveal yourself or become their reflection? Because only one of these roads leads to power. The mirror teaches you this: influence is never about confrontation. It's about alignment. You enter their world, their rhythm, their emotional frequency. You let them feel understood, until their trust becomes the leash you pull gently, invisibly. That is how kingdoms are ruled without rebellion. That is how lovers are kept loyal long after passion fades. That is how entire societies are guided toward illusions they believe they chose. When people feel mirrored, they mistake you for an ally. They surrender their skepticism. They reveal their fears and motives willingly, because they think you share them. But you don't. You're only reflecting what's useful. There's a reason the manipulator always looks calm. He doesn't fight to win people. He lets people win themselves. He speaks less to persuade, more to echo. He doesn't lead with emotion. He leads through it. Consider the most charismatic figures of our time. They don't talk at you. They make you feel like they're talking for you. Their power lies not in their words, but in how those words reflect your hidden hunger. That's the essence of the mirror. It is not deception. It is design. You are not lying when you mirror someone. You are showing them a version of truth they can accept. And acceptance is the first step toward obedience. But beware, the mirror can consume its maker. If you reflect too long, you may forget your own image. Manipulators who lose themselves in their masks eventually become puppets of the roles they create. Power without identity collapses under its own illusion. So, learn the balance. Reflect enough to control, but not enough to dissolve. Use perception as a weapon, not as a prison. Know who you are, so you can become who they need you to be. Because in every interaction, someone's reflection dominates the exchange. Either you are the mirror, or you are the one being mirrored. The weak reveal themselves. The powerful reveal you. And when you master this art, when you can make others see themselves in your gaze, you will rule them without ever lifting a finger. But reflection is only the surface of control. To keep that control, you must learn how to feed, starve, and weaponize desire itself. People are not destroyed by pain. They are destroyed by emptiness. When you understand this, you begin to see control not as an act of aggression, but as an act of deprivation. Emotional starvation is one of the oldest, most invisible tools of domination. You do not command by shouting. You command by withholding. Human beings are addicted to attention, validation, and emotional recognition. They crave to be seen, heard, and understood, and in that craving lies their weakness. You see it everywhere. The lover waiting for a message that never comes. The employee desperate for approval from a silent superior. The friend chasing closeness from someone who stays distant. That silence burns deeper than any insult, because the mind cannot resist what it cannot predict. You, the strategist, must learn this law. The one who controls emotional supply controls emotional reality. Throughout history, the masters of manipulation understood this truth. They didn't conquer through constant attention. They conquered through scarcity. Think of monarchs who rarely appeared before their people. Their absence became myth. Every word, every gesture, every appearance carried weight because it was rare. Scarcity creates value. And the same law applies to emotion. When you withhold attention, others begin to chase it. They try to decode your silence, to earn your approval, to win your warmth. They mistake your distance for superiority. Their obsession becomes your control. Consider the relationship between a ruler and his court. The ruler's silence fuels endless speculation. Ministers whisper, nobles compete. Servants tremble, all because they do not know what the ruler is thinking. In that uncertainty, he becomes godlike. His stillness creates movement in others. His absence drives their devotion. This is the psychology of emotional starvation. You do not need to dominate people directly. You let their hunger for your reaction consume them. They will adjust their tone, their behavior, even their beliefs, just to regain what you've withdrawn. Ask yourself, how often do you feed others with validation they have not earned? How often do you respond instantly, comfort constantly, reassure habitually? Every time you do, you teach them that your attention is cheap. But when you withhold, when you make it scarce, you teach them to earn it. And people will do almost anything for what they believe they must earn. In psychological warfare, emotional starvation is subtle but devastating. It dismantles resistance without open conflict. The victim begins to doubt themselves. Did I do something wrong? Have I lost their respect? How do I get it back? That spiral of uncertainty enslaves them far more effectively than fear. The mind despises emotional vacuum. It will fill it with stories, projections, and desperation. You simply need to remain still, composed, silent, and let their imagination destroy their balance. But remember, starvation is not cruelty. It is calibration. You are not punishing. You are conditioning. Reward presence, withdraw when unnecessary. Offer warmth sparingly, like a rare currency. This makes your approval sacred, your disapproval terrifying, and your neutrality unbearable. History's manipulators understood this rhythm. They alternated between reward and absence, creating a cycle of emotional dependency. One moment, They would offer validation so intoxicating that their target felt invincible. The next, they vanished, leaving that person crawling back for more. A cycle of feast and famine, the invisible leash of power. Even in modern dynamics, this rule persists. Influencers build obsession through controlled availability. Corporations use scarcity to inflate desire. Leaders alternate between charm and coldness to command loyalty. The pattern is ancient, but its execution evolves. The key is precision. Too much starvation, and you breed resentment. Too much reward, and you lose authority. But balance them, and you become the emotional axis around which others spin. When someone is emotionally starved, they do not see reality clearly. They see only you. The source of fulfillment they cannot replace. You occupy their mind, their thoughts, their choices. You no longer need to demand loyalty, you become the source of it. So practice this art quietly. Withdraw strategically. Give only enough to maintain the illusion of hope. And watch how people start competing for your silence, mistaking absence for mystery and mystery for worth. Because in the economy of emotion, the one who gives least often gains most. Now tell me, once you've made them chase your attention, how do you ensure they never realize they're trapped? That is where the illusion of freedom begins. People obey best when they believe they are free. Chains are resisted, but choices are embraced. And so, the master of control never forces, he guides. He lets his subjects walk willingly into the cage, believing it was their idea all along. This is the illusion of freedom, the most elegant form of domination ever conceived. You see, humans have a fragile ego. They will tolerate hardship, even suffering, as long as they believe they are acting out of their own will. Take away that illusion, and they revolt. Leave it intact, and they will serve you with pride. The clever ruler understands this. He does not say, obey me. He says, choose. But the options he offers are crafted so carefully that every path still leads back to him. Consider ancient Rome. The Senate believed itself powerful, debating laws, guiding the republic's destiny. But behind them stood a single man, the emperor, who controlled what reached the floor, what was discussed, and what was silenced. The senators spoke with passion, believing they ruled the empire, while every decision had already been written by the man who understood their pride. That is the art to rule without appearing to rule. Ask yourself how many of your choices are truly yours. The products you buy, the leaders you trust, the opinions you hold so fiercely, how many were planted in your mind by those who understood this principle? Freedom is a performance. The stage is wide, but the walls are invisible. And most will never question the script as long as they're allowed to act. The manipulator creates this illusion through subtle architecture. He does not restrict, he directs. He gives options, but arranges them so that one seems naturally superior. He builds a maze and leaves the door open, knowing that the crowd will never step outside because they've been taught to love the labyrinth. Psychologically, this plays on the illusion of agency. The mind's desperate need to feel in control. Even when outcomes are predetermined, as long as a choice exists, the ego clings to the belief that it decided freely. And that belief, that comforting delusion, is what makes control sustainable. In modern politics, this illusion thrives. Nations are given elections, voices, platforms, yet the systems beneath them remain unchanged. People fight passionately over colors and symbols, never realizing they're choosing between identical masters. The illusion of freedom pacifies rebellion better than fear ever could. In relationships, it's no different. The skilled manipulator allows the other to feel independent. He never demands loyalty, he allows it to emerge. He creates conditions where the other wants to stay, to please, to prove, to belong. And because they feel it was their decision, they defend it with conviction. The beauty of this method lies in its invisibility. Force exposes itself. Deception hides poorly under scrutiny. But illusion is graceful. It disguises control as empowerment. It lets people fight for their own captivity. Even religion, throughout history, has understood this power of perceived choice. It offers paths, rituals, symbols, yet all lead toward the same center of obedience. Worshippers feel guided by faith, not controlled by doctrine. They surrender willingly, believing it is liberation. The same principle governs empires, corporations, lovers, and leaders. If people believe they are free, they will chain themselves in your service. So, how do you wield this? First, never command directly. Plant ideas subtly. Let others speak them aloud before you do. The idea they think they discovered is the one they will die defending. Second, offer limited freedom. Too many options breed chaos. Too few breed rebellion. But give them 2 or 3 paths, and they will feel empowered, never realizing all paths end where you intended. Third, reward autonomy publicly and manipulate structure privately. Praise their independence while quietly ensuring every system they rely on flows through you. Finally, never break the illusion entirely. Let them suspect, never see. Doubt keeps them curious, certainty makes them flee. The perfect control is half believed, half freedom, half obedience. When you master this, you no longer need to dominate through fear. You dominate through belief. You let others write your rule into their own identity, and once someone identifies with their servitude, they will protect it like it's freedom itself. This is the most exquisite trick of power, not to enslave the body, but to convince the mind that the chains are wings. But remember, every illusion demands maintenance. And when people begin to see through it, the manipulator must evolve. He must ascend beyond illusion itself and learn to control the moral lens through which freedom is judged. That is the next level of domination. Power is never truly yours until emotion stops ruling you. Most people believe empathy is a virtue, but to the strategist, it is a leash. Empathy ties your judgment to the suffering of others. It clouds clarity with compassion and replaces precision with pity. And pity, though noble in appearance, is the rust that corrodes decisive power. To rise above ordinary minds, you must rise above their sentimental illusions. You must ascend beyond empathy. Not to become cruel, but to see humanity as it is, not as it wishes to be. Look at the rulers who changed history. They all possessed a cold fire, a calm ability to act while others hesitated. They understood that the world is not governed by fairness, but by force, perception, and necessity. Alexander burned cities to unite nations. Augustus exiled his allies to preserve the empire. Even Christ, in his own paradoxical way, sacrificed peace to ignite a revolution of faith. Each of them understood the same truth: emotion is the enemy of strategy. Ask yourself, how many times have you failed to act because you felt too much? How many opportunities have you lost because you hesitated, fearing to offend, to wound, to appear heartless? And how many ruthless people moved past you while you waited to be liked? This is the quiet tragedy of the empathetic mind. It values peace more than power. It seeks harmony instead of hierarchy. It wants to be understood rather than obeyed. But no one remembers the kind ruler who avoided offense. Only the one who shaped destiny with precision, no matter the blood it required. To ascend beyond empathy is to regain control over your emotional instrument. You do not destroy it, you master it. Empathy becomes a tool, not a law. You summon it when it serves you and silence it when it threatens clarity. Imagine you are a commander. 2 paths lie before you. One saves your men's feelings, the other saves their lives. Which do you choose? If your heart answers before your reason does, you are not yet fit to rule. This ascension is psychological warfare within yourself. The empathetic self wants comfort and connection. The strategic self seeks control and order. They will fight endlessly until one learns to serve the other. And that is your task, to let empathy serve, not lead. You must study human nature as an observer, not as a participant. Detach enough to analyze, but not so far that you cannot influence. Observe people's tears not as tragedies but as data. Each emotion reveals a weakness, a doorway, a pattern. Those who pity waste power, those who read emotion command it. Even in modern life, this principle governs silent hierarchies. In business, leaders who cling to empathy struggle to fire incompetence. In love, those who feel too deeply become slaves to emotional leverage. And in politics, those who seek universal approval lose control of every faction. Empathy without boundaries becomes emotional blackmail. Understand this. People respect what they fear losing, not what they pity. And those who never master their emotions become pawns in someone else's game. But this does not mean you should become cruel or inhuman. Cruelty is a weakness too, an uncontrolled reaction of the ego. The true strategist acts without hatred, strikes without anger, and rules without guilt. He is not cold because he hates. He is cold because he understands. He sees that morality, emotion, and compassion are social currencies, useful for trade, but fatal when hoarded. He gives them sparingly, when it serves his ends, and withdraws them when they weaken his position. You cannot manipulate emotion if you drown in it. You cannot command loyalty if you crave affection. And you cannot shape fate if you tremble before judgment. Observed. Decide. Let your emotions be soldiers, not rulers. Empathy will tempt you to pause, to console, to wait, but power rewards only motion. Empathy feels, strategy acts, and the world bends to the one who acts. History forgets the sensitive heart, but it remembers the hand that shaped consequence. So when you are torn between mercy and necessity, ask yourself which serves the outcome I desire. And then move, even if it cuts through sentiment. Because the one who ascends beyond empathy no longer reacts to humanity, he engineers it. But mastery of emotion is not the final step. There is a higher form of control, where you no longer shape individuals, but entire realities of thought itself. That is the domain of perception. Power is not taken, it is designed. Those who control without being seen do not shout commands, they whisper beliefs. True domination is not force. It is architecture. You build the illusion, let others decorate it with their pride, and they will defend your control as if it were freedom itself. The weak chase obedience, the wise construct influence, and the master, he controls without a trace of command. Ask yourself, are you shaping minds or are you being shaped by them? Do you move others or merely react to their noise? Control begins in perception, but perfection lies in invisibility. When they cannot name your power, you have already won. If these truths disturb you, it means you have begun to see. Now, tell me, what part of control do you fear most? Comment your thoughts below, subscribe to sharpen your psychological edge, and share this with those who still believe power is kindness. Let them stay blind. You will not.